times Vince McMahon forced WWE wrestlers to redo the match finish. Number 10, Shayna Baszler vs Natalya. When the global pandemic drastically altered how WWE filmed and presented Raw and SmackDown, it allowed WWE to retape any matches that didn't quite hit the mark. One of the matches that was retaped was Shayna Baszler vs Natalya on Raw, and the former WWE chairman Vince McMahon disliked the match so much that he made the two women do the entire match again. The former NXT Women's Champion discussed McMahon's negative reaction during an appearance on Renee Paquette's Oral Sessions podcast. The next week I had a match with Natty. Natty is way more experienced than this, obviously. Natty has trained with me in an MMA gym. I said, let's just shoot around a little bit, and then we'll get to what we need to get to. We do it, he hates it. I went to the back and he said, it looks like you're just fighting each other. He makes us do it again. Now this was a confusing critique from McMahon. Baszler's entire style was MMA based, and this was yet another sign that Baszler was never going to reach the upper echelon of WWE under the leadership of Vince McMahon. Number 9, Sin Cara vs Heath Slater. But during the time in which SmackDown was taped, it wasn't exactly rare for WWE to retape a match on the show. In 2011, Sin Cara's WWE run wasn't going to plan, as his matches were underwhelming and he was prone to botching in every match. When Sin Cara wrestled the talented Heath Slater on SmackDown, the match was filled with so many botches that WWE had no choice but to refilm the match later in the night. This must have been extremely confusing to the audience, and it was certainly alarming that even WWE's editing team wouldn't have been able to save the initial match in post-production. There were just that many botches. Number 8, Otis vs Baron Corbin. Negative reports surfaced almost immediately after the Otis vs Baron Corbin match on SmackDown in 2020. Otis reportedly had to take a brutal spinebuster 4 times instead of just once. And when the match finished without the scripted spot, Vince McMahon made both men deliver the match again. A lot of fans questioned this decision-making at the time, as it would have made more logical sense just to repeat the spot. The spot itself didn't even mean much in the grand scheme of things, and it was almost as if McMahon was getting a kick out of insisting talent to repeat their matches. Number 7, Seth Rollins vs Kofi Kingston. And not every wrestler is going to take the idea of reshooting a match very well, and this was the case in 2014 with Seth Rollins. Rollins wrestled Kofi Kingston on SmackDown, and although both men were happy with the match, Vince McMahon hated it. McMahon insisted that both men retape the match completely. This didn't sit well with the former WWE Champion. According to Rollins on Edge and Christian's podcast, Rollins tried to make Kingston look as good as possible in the brief 3-minute matchup. But one time on SmackDown, I had this match with Kofi. It was when they were still taping SmackDown. I had this match with Kofi, and it was meant to be a get-over match for me. Now, Kofi is someone that I have a lot of respect for, and someone I would never, even in a match that is meant for me to look good in, I would not just want to squash Kofi. I just wouldn't want to do it. I would want to give him something, and that's just my nature. So we went out and had this. It was literally 3 minutes long, probably, start to finish, bell to bell, 3 minutes long, and I give Kofi a little bit, make him look good, and then beat him. And then I remember coming to the back and thinking, oh, that was alright. But according to Rollins, the way that McMahon spoke to him made him want to walk out of the company. And Vince was furious about it. Like, furious. Just get over here. And he's yelling at me, and he's just like, if you're going to be my guy, you're going to be my guy. That's not what I want. And he shooed me out of the Gorilla. I didn't understand. I didn't get it. And Michael was trying to explain to me what Vince wanted out of the situation. And they ended up making me and Kofi go out there and redo the match. And I remember that feeling when they told me that. I was so and embarrassed and just ready to just walk out and not do it, because I was like, never in my life, never should this happen to me. Rollins would go on to state that it was a huge learning experience, and he acknowledged that it's okay to screw up and grow as a performer. Number 6, Randy Savage vs Ric Flair. At an event in Hershey in 1992, a WWE title match between Randy Savage and Ric Flair went so wrong that WWE were forced to awkwardly retake the match. Savage fought Flair to a double disqualification, and a rematch was then set later for the show. According to Bret Hart, the match had to be redone due to Flair and Savage ignoring Vince McMahon's instructions as to what to do with the match. In the initial match, Razor Ramon was supposed to interfere, and then both legends would go straight to the finish, with Flair winning the WWE title. For whatever reason, Flair and Savage decided to work an extra 10 minutes, which naturally enraged Vince McMahon. McMahon would call an audible, and he would have both men brawl to the back before verbally berating the duo. The match would then be retaped and would air on Primetime Wrestling. Number 5, Jey Uso vs Daniel Bryan. And Daniel Bryan is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, but even he wasn't immune from being forced to have his match retaped. In late 2020, Bryan was wrestling Jey Uso on SmackDown, and a portion of the match focused on Bryan selling a specific body part. Unfortunately, Vince McMahon wasn't happy with the way Bryan was selling the body part, and he made both men reshoot a portion of the match. Thankfully for both men, McMahon didn't require the entirety of the match to be redone. This match took place in the Thunderdome, and WWE smartly put the live digital crowd into commercial mode whilst they spent a few minutes delivering the required reshoot. Number 4, Kane vs. Kurt Angle. In the early 2000s, WWE liked to take advantage of reshoots as well as skillful editing to present segments and matches in the manner they initially intended. In 2002, during a match between Kurt Angle and Kane on SmackDown, as Kane was removing the monitors from the announce table, the table imploded. Due to SmackDown being taped, WWE would film a subsequent segment which would see Angle put Kane through the announce table. This is extremely confusing for the live crowd, and WWE would simply edit the two segments together to look like there was no actual bot or lapse in the time. Number 3, John Morrison vs. Triple H. The table matches are prone to botches and blunders. When the finish to the John Morrison vs. Triple H tables match went wrong on SmackDown in 2009, WWE just retaped the ending. According to fans in attendance, the ending was botched and Morrison didn't even manage to land through the table. After an awkward few moments, the two wrestlers acted like nothing happened, and they did the exact same spot with Morrison now landing clean through the table. The reaction to the finish is one of confusion, as the crowd no doubt were completely bewildered as to what just happened. Number 2, Michelle McCool vs. Victoria. In the 2000s, the women of the WWE were barely given a spotlight, and if they had a great match on TV or pay-per-view, they unfortunately would be given their flowers. In 2009, Michelle McCool and Victoria had what was described a fantastic match on SmackDown. Sadly, in a backwards move, the match was seen as quote-unquote too good for the women, and WWE legitimately made the two redo the match. McCool discussed this during an interview with Chris Van Vliet, and McCool stated that there was a period in which the women in WWE weren't allowed to punch or kick. There was one point where Victoria and I had a match. We came backstage, getting changed, and they come back and say, "Hey, y'all need to come back out and do your match again." We're like, "What do you mean come back out and do our match again?" They're like, "Your punches and kicks look better than the guys." We're like, "Wait a minute, we have to redo our match because our punches look too good? That doesn't sound like an us problem." Chris Jericho stood up for us and he said, "If the guys' punches don't look good as well, that's not the girls' fault." Regardless, we had to go out there and redo our match. It was a period of about 3 or 4 weeks that girls couldn't punch or kick. Thankfully, WWE have moved away from this bizarre mentality, but it's crazy to think that the women's roster were held back due to being too good at their matches. And number 1, Kurt Angle vs. The Undertaker. One of the biggest matches of 2002 saw The Undertaker take on Kurt Angle on SmackDown, and this was a match in which the dead man tapped out when he was locked in a sinister triangle choke. The original finish saw The Undertaker tap out on Angle's leg. However, Vince McMahon wasn't happy with the way this was done. This was a huge moment as The Undertaker tapping out was going to be historic, so it had to be perfect. WWE decided to reshoot the ending, but there was one main issue. Fans in the arena had already left. And to solve this, WWE had staff members on the front row to make it appear like it wasn't retaped. Fans were quick to notice that the crowd had gone from women and children to grown men, most of whom were in business attire. It's definitely one of the more unusual retapes WWE have ever delivered.